On today's episode, we update everybody on all the roster moves the Cubs made late last week. Also, Rule 5 preview and breakdown, as that is coming up on Tuesday, plus the latest in the free agent chatter. That's all ahead on Locked On Cubs.
Are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cubs alongside Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy. Pleased to be with you for a Monday episode as we kick off another week here on the show. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're lifelong fans taking our passion into discussion with you on all things Cubs. Hopefully everybody had a good weekend whenever and wherever you may be listening. Sam, it's good to see you. You look really good for a Sunday evening recording here. And a lot of roster moves by the Cubs. There's going to be a couple deadlines we're paying attention to this week. And the Cubs already started to crunch their 40-man roster. We're going to update everybody on that and break it down a bit.
Yeah, good to be on. Rough weekend sporting-wise, massive collapse on the NCAA front, and then really a mini collapse today down by the lakefront. But right. Still doing okay. Quick jury duty update that you'll find interesting is that I did have to report tomorrow, but due to a car issue and now a check engine light situation, I have postponed my jury duty by 3 months to get that taken care of tomorrow. Let's talk about the Cubs. Let's talk about all this free agency.
That's breaking news.
Who did we lose? Who's back? Great for Bodie. Let's go.
Sounds good. Well, we'll follow up with you on that sometime this week. So on Thursday, the Cubs activated the following players off the 60-day injured list: Kyle Hendricks, Cody Hoyer, Ethan Roberts, Jason Hayward, Rafael Ortega, Alec Mills, and Brad Wick. They also on the same day.
Hey, that doesn't sound like the 27 Yankees to me.
They also outrighted these players off the 40-man, two players that were activated seconds earlier, Mills and Wick, in addition to David Bodie, Steven Brault, Narcisco Crook, Anderson Espinoza, and Franmil Reyes. And the news since the Cubs made those moves is because these players have all accrued enough minor league service time,
right?
Because they were all optioned to AAA Iowa. These were all effectively non-tenders, as everyone excluding Bodie, who has a guaranteed contract through 2024, had enough of that service time. So all those players I just mentioned that were outrighted have elected free agency. In addition, on Friday, Esteban Quiros and Jared Young were sent to AAA, and they too are now free agents. Sam, any surprises amongst these names and your first impressions?
Yeah.
Any surprises or first? Yeah, there's a little bit of a connection issue.
Yeah, no, we're good. I got you back now. Sometimes it happens. Franmil for me. I think Franmil, I've talked about it on the show. I thought he was kind of a nice project to have. He was an acquisition that made sense. Mm-hmm. But if you want to do like a yoga Bikram stretch and really stretch this out, you could make the case that by letting Reyes elect free agency, it makes a signing like Abreu much more likely, because obviously it looks like they feel like they're going to get their DH elsewhere. I think that's stretching it out a little bit far.
I think a little bit.
Yeah, but
I like the way you're thinking, though.
Yeah, right.
And what type of stretch was that again?
I yoga something. I don't know. Kobe said it once in a press conference, and so I'm using it. The Bodie thing obviously doesn't surprise me, because he actually, he's making much more money from the Cubs than he would on the open market.
Right, because he could elect free agency too, but why would he?
Why would he when he's getting a few million from the Cubs next year and he's a bench player?
Yeah. or he's at Iowa.
Do you the Reyes thing surprised me a little bit. Are you with me on that or no?
Well, it was just interesting, his progression. I really liked the pickup for the Cubs late in the summer. He
Yeah.
got off to that hot start.
Right.
We talked about it. We were having fun. We enjoyed it.
Right.
I really liked his power tool because that's something that this club has lacked now
Sure.
for a little bit, and especially on the way the current roster was constructed. So it was nice to see that. I still think that power tool is in there. I mean, I think that whatever team he ends up with, and perhaps there's an outside chance that he re-ups with the Cubs
Outside.
yeah, but he was arbitration eligible. He was due for a pretty sizable number. They basically non-tender him. But if you look at the roster numbers, and later in the show, we're going to talk about the prospects that the Cubs are going to have to protect. Who do the Cubs value right now? They value their future, and their future is the young players. And Franmil is a veteran who played well in Cleveland, struggled mightily in Cleveland. He was going to be a project either way, and that project is not going to continue in Chicago.
Outside of an outside chance.
Right. And the other names on the list, those are obvious names. And there's actually a couple more that I can go over in a minute. But, Alec Mills, what was your favorite moment of the Alec Mills era? Remember the no-hitter he had?
Opening day for the Bears. They beat the Lions in Detroit. And
it was like our second show ever.
And after that, Mills throws a no-hitter in Milwaukee. In that city up north against that team. Yeah, I'm glad that he's with all due respect to him, his profile, what he does well, the Cubs have just already a surplus of that. So that made a lot of sense. Same with Brault.
And he barely pitched this year.
The only thing, I don't want to be repetitive, but the only thing that really caught my eye that was like, was the Reyes thing.
Right. Well, he's the player, you would say that's capable of the most.
Right.
So the 40-man roster is currently at 35 as of this moment of recording on a Sunday night. But Jason Hayward, for some reason, hasn't been officially released. And you have these three names that I think are all non-tender candidates by Tuesday's protection deadline. So there's the non-tender deadline Friday, but you have to place and protect players on the 40-man roster by Tuesday. So really, the non-tender deadline, you could say, is Tuesday.
Right.
And so Ortega, Michael Rucker, and Eric Ullman, I think, are all candidates to bring the roster down to maybe the 32, 33 range. In addition to Hayward, it's 31, 32.
Ortega and Hayward need to go.
Yes, so that brings it down to 33.
Yeah.
And then there's a pitching prospect, Sam. I don't know if you've seen this in some of the blurbs out there on the internet machine. The Cubs have a pitching prospect, Alex Vizcaino, who chose not to pitch in 2022. And so he may be released as well this week, which would open up a spot. So the roster is currently at 35, probably going to be 33 by Tuesday. And so there's definitely some room to protect some players. And obviously there's got to be room when they sign some players later on.
Yeah, and that might not be that far off.
Okay.
Especially, with a certain guy that has made his money on the south side of this city. That could happen before Thanksgiving.
That would be absolutely fantastic. That would make every Cubs fan's turkey or ham or mashed potatoes or stuffing.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah. Much better.
Nah, I'm kidding, man. It's been a long weekend.
I can tell if you're cutting off some of my material.
No, I didn't cut it off. I know, the ham, the turkey. which I don't like either, by the way.
Right. That's
but we'll have that'll be a different show for a
different episode.
All right, enough about who's released.
Okay.
Let's talk about some positive stuff.
Right. Well, there's a lot of positive on the prospect front. So, who will the Cubs protect in the Rule 5 draft? We get to all of that good stuff coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering info with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. And I want to break down at some point this week. I saw a graphic from the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Sports Network's account late last week about Aaron Judge. Did you see the favorite outside of the Yankees for Aaron Judge, according to BetOnline?
Got to be the Giants, right?
It is, yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to pursue maybe Carlos Correa lines for the show, and maybe they could build us a graphic or something. That'd be pretty cool. As we keep tabs on that market this week. So the Rule 5 draft, there's a certain number of players. Actually, there's a ton of players in the Cubs system that are eligible for this. There's a couple twists and turns. The main thing that people should know is any player that's selected in the major league phase of the Rule 5 draft, the true intention is that they remain on the major league 26-man roster the whole year.
Right.
Obviously excluding an IL stint or something like that. There's also some twists with minor league options and added service time.
Right.
But the Cubs, Sam, have 3 locks, and then we can kind of go from there. Okay.
Sure.
So Kevin Alcantara, Ben Brown, and Brennan Davis are all eligible
Obviously.
for the Rule 5 draft.
Right.
These players, Ben Brown being a first year with the organization, Kevin Alcantara his second, extremely high ceilings, and then Brennan Davis, who has been in the top 5 of prospects the last couple of years. Those are all obvious locks, right? Those aren't a surprise to you?
No.
Okay. And then there's a few other players that make this interesting just because the Rule 5 draft, it's a lot more common to see pitchers selected.
Right.
Because this day and age, actually, I think it's a rule. I'm 99% sure it's a rule. Right, Sam? 13 pitchers on MLB roster.
Yes.
13 pitchers, 13 position players, okay? So that means you very likely have 8 people in the bullpen.
Right.
Well, maybe a team likes a pitcher in the Rule 5 draft, takes that person, and then that person is the 8th pitcher in the bullpen. So it's definitely more pitching heavy. I think the Cubs have some candidates to be not only protected, but selected by other clubs, and it kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
But with at least 5 spots open, Alcantara, Brown, and Davis take their spots on the 40-man.
Right.
And I think it's very likely that this trio of pitchers gets added as well, although
Sure.
they'd have to outright somebody else or release them or non-tender. But this trio right here, Luis Devers, who was the
Yes.
minor league pitcher of the year,
100%.
Ryan Jensen, who was the first-round pick in 2019.
2019.
And then another right-handed pitcher, Riley Thompson.
So this is, I would say the first 2 for sure. I'm not too familiar with Riley Thompson's work.
Yeah, these guys have been mostly starters in the minors, if not exclusively, but could project as a relief role in the majors, and a team could get aggressive and take a Thompson or a Jensen, who throw 95 plus and have touched 99, 100 at times.
Right.
So I think those 3 are going to be protected, and then I think Chase Strumpf, an infield prospect, is possible. He had a really good year. He was part of the organizational all-star team that we read a couple weeks ago. And so I think that's a possibility as well. And then, just doing some digging today, I think these three are candidates to be picked by other teams. I don't think it's likely that the Cubs will protect them unless they just go, aggressive with their current roster and non-tender all those people we mentioned earlier. But Darius Hill raked at AAA this year. He's probably going to be picked by somebody. He's a little bit older anyways. So he'll be a fourth or fifth outfielder for a team. I could definitely see that. And then relief pitchers Cam Sanders and Danis Correa, relievers, could be picked by other clubs as well. So, it's a good problem to have that you have a lot of good players, right? But you can't protect everybody. And
Right.
so there's definitely going to be some losses, but you try to prioritize the top heaviness of your organization. And we'll see what happens between now and Tuesday.
Yeah, wow, that was a lot. I would love
Yeah.
look, I agree with the pitching aspect of it. I'm not, the Darius Hill thing, we'll see. I'm sure you've read up on it more than me. I'd like to talk about everything you said. I get. I'd like to talk about the Morrissey free agent stuff.
Okay.
I want to talk about some additions to this team. A lot about who's going on. I want to talk about stuff about this team becoming a winning baseball team in the next 2 months.
Oh, so there was a lot. There was more than you. There was a lot from the weekend. The Morosi stuff for you.
Yeah, and I'd like you to kind of intro it, and I'd like to talk about that because between the 40-man stuff and the Rule 5 stuff, I might need an Excedrin because it's just a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff that doesn't really help this baseball team win 88 games this year. And
well, it could.
I understand it's our job, and you did that fantastically. By the way, you really. You really did a good job with that, and
I hope so because I'm nervous.
No, I don't have much to add.
Right.
So
That's okay. Let's get to the major league stars of this.
Can we
this
talk
sport.
about that guy that drove in a lot of runs for the South Side team?
We're gonna do that coming up next. Welcome back in to Locked On Cubs. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. One of my favorite reporters, fellow Italian, would love to have John Morosi on the program this offseason. Of
Reach
MLB
out to
Network.
his people.
I'm going to. Trust me.
That's your job.
He reported this weekend that the Cubs are among most active teams in the shortstop market during the early days of free agents. They've been in touch with the agents of Carlos Correa, Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, and Dansby Swanson. So, Sam, it's clear the Cubs are serious about this market. However, there has been a lot of teams mentioned for at least one of these players, but it's good to know that they've been active.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about they're desperate and they don't get who they want and they go to Dansby Swanson. With all due respect to Dansby, Vanderbilt guy, and all that stuff, I don't. That feels like the Hayward contract all over again for me. I said that on that show. So,
Wow.
So I hope they get one of the other three, but I like the activeness. Go on.
Well, do you think it's a first domino to fall situation, or what do you think?
Good question.
That's why I asked it.
I think Trey Turner goes first and sets the market with a long-term deal.
Okay.
And then the dominoes fall, and I think the Cubs are going to have to come in with a smaller deal. I mean, we've talked about this. I'm not going to say it for the 80th.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, the Cubs will come in with a smaller length, higher AAV deal for one of the other two. My I'll just say my final prediction: Turner either stays with LA or goes to Philly, and that's the first domino to fall. And then Correa uses that as his reference point for his deal. And we go from there. But I just hope it's one of the three. I've been saying for a while that it's going to be one of the three. So hopefully it is.
So do you have any additional trepidation about them not signing one of these players?
Absolutely.
You do?
Yeah. Absolutely. Not, I
Yeah,
mean,
because there's so many teams mentioned.
there's so many teams mentioned. There's so many different reports. You read the stuff about, oh, well, you know, Jed, we're going to spend wisely and we're not going to give an 8, 9, 10-year deal, which is fine. But what if Detroit, like they did last year, what if with Baez, what if the Royals say, hey, here's 9 years for so-and-so. And,
Right.
these guys, these, with all due respect, and I'm not blaming them for it. These guys are just counting checks and it's a competition. They don't, when push comes to shove, whoever pays the most is most likely where they're going to go, or whichever makes the most financial sense.
Right.
In Correa's situation, it could be an investment situation, 5 years at 40 plus, then maybe get another 3-year deal. I just hope the Cubs get one of them. But listen, I don't want them to compromise their entire future to get one of them. They're not, none of these guys are one of the 5 best guys in the league. But I look. You know me well with this. I've been very patient with this year and a half, and I've been very defensive towards Hoyer. I have been pretty understanding of the owner. I have made it very clear to our listeners, our great listeners, I need something this year, and it's not going to happen without some free agency splashes. And with all due respect, just Jose Abreu ain't going to cut it. And remember, with no shifting now, that middle infield becomes even more paramount, becomes even more important because you can't cheat. So you have to have high-range guys, and you're going to have Nico on the right side. Be nice to have a stud on the left.
Speaking of Jose Abreu, another potential guest for this program, 670 The Scores, Bruce Levine.
I thought you were talking about Abreu.
Reported on Saturday that Jose Abreu is the number one priority for the Cubs right now.
I saw that. So here's my take on that. I think he's the number one priority because he's the easiest and most likely to sign.
Right.
Because we've talked about this again too. He just fits exactly the type of contract the Cubs want to give out. 2-3 years, high AAV. And so they're going to say that so they can say, hey, we got our priority done. Yeah, okay, I'm calling you out on it. The priority is to get a stud pitcher and one of the shortstops. And that was made clear around the trade deadline. Remember when people were buzzing about it all the way? Rosenthal mentioned something,
right.
Only mentioned something. Now Abreu's the highest priority because that's the easiest thing that's going to probably be to get done. It'll probably come quick. Abreu's great, and I want him. And I'll be happy when we get him, if we get him. But the priority is add a middle infielder, add a starter, and let's go.
Absolutely. It gets me fired up. And then finally, and let me know if there's anything else you want to add with this convo.
Yeah, my neck hurts a little.
Just before we went on the air, Morosi reported that the Rays are going to be active before Tuesday's protection deadline. So perhaps they could find a trade partner in the Cubs for some of their players. We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, well, Lord knows they had some success with some Cubs players this year. Ramirez was hitting in the middle of the order. Isaac Paredes hit 20-something home runs. Jason Adam was a big part of their pen. And there's another guy, I can't remember who it was in their bullpen, that was a former Cub as well. So yeah, they enjoy stealing Cubs talent and turning them into assets.
Wow. All right. Anything else from today's program?
Here's what I'll say. I need a little bit of a lift from my clubs.
You're struggling, huh?
I mean,
yeah.
Back-to-back weekends, 0-4 for my football teams at home against 3 of the 4 were bad teams they lost to.
Against inferior teams, right.
College basketball is getting going. I need the Cubs to hit a home run this offseason. Please don't do the whole, hey, we signed Tyler Anderson, Abreu, and Swanson, and we spent wisely, and God bless America, and we're going to be good in 25. I can't deal with that.
This week on the show, we're going to get into some fan feedback, some more player grades, Of course, we'll break down any breaking news and a whole lot more. So be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods on the audio side. 312-834-4663 is the text line. And thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to Locked On Sports Today podcast. Locked On Sports Today is our 22-minute recap of the previous night in sports. It features local experts on each of the big stories, as well as the take of the day from one of the Locked On hosts. Everybody have a great week. We will talk to you as the week moves along. He is Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy. This is Locked On Cubs.